This is an introduction to ASP.NET. So I'm assuming that we're all familiar with the basics that we've been taught so far, and we can now start using it for ASP.NET to build our web apps, APIs, and stuff, right? So first things first, we are on Microsoft's ASP.NET website. One thing you need to know is when you're building web apps, APIs, and stuff with C#, this is the most popular framework out there to work with. With JavaScript, you have React. Most people say React is a library, not a framework. I don't know, I don't care. I'm sorry I said that out loud. Anyways, we have Node.js for backend, you have Angular, we have Vue.js and stuff like that, right? For PHP, you have Laravel, you have CodeIgniter. For Ruby, you have Rails, I think. Right, my point is most languages have their frameworks that are built to make building of softwares easier and faster. And the point is, you already have like a template to work with, like a framework, like you can just start off a project and then you can run that project and have a basic template to work off with. And that is what ASP.NET is for C#. There are other templates out there or frameworks out there, but this is the only one built by Microsoft and supported by Microsoft. So let's start. It says free cross-platform, open source, a framework for building web apps and services with .NET and C#. Free, that means it is free to use. Cross-platform, that means you can use it on Windows, Linux, or Mac. Open source, that means the code is available on GitHub, right? And you as a developer, if you know that, oh, you're good enough, you want to check it out, and you want to contribute to it, you can go there, fork the code, change what you want to change, make a pull request, and hopefully the people who are reviewing the code would merge it. So a lot of people work on the code and try to improve it. I'm trying to access the GitHub right now. Let's see if I can access it. All right, great. So ASP.NET on GitHub, right? So you have identity, you have Signal R, WebStack, jQuery, blah, 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 and a lot of other stuff right in here. And as you can see, it says public, 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 public. So you can see the code and what they've written. There are a lot of repositories in here. Let me see. There's a lot of repositories. And then if we go back, you can see the people that are contributing to it. You can see all of the people contributing to it. So that's what it means by open source, right? And then probably when you grow into the whole text of a thing, you would understand more what open source is. So a framework for building web apps and services with .NET and C#. Right now, so if you want to use C# for the backend, you can. If you want to use C# for front end, you can. If you want to use C# as a microservice, you can. If you want to use C# as an API, whatever, think about it, you can with ASP.NET. So if you want to use C# as a backend, you have what is called Blazor. And it is used to build C# apps, but for the front end. So most people say with Blazor, you don't need to learn JavaScript to build your front end. So Blazor is kind of trying to replace Angular and React and the likes, right? So it's like a front end framework, but with C# as a language. So you might want to check that out later. We might not touch on it on this training. Web apps. So if you want to use C# to build like a web app, backend, front end, a single repository, everything is in there. You can do that with ASP.NET MVC. With REST API, you could do that with ASP.NET API. real-time bidirectional communication between server and clients. You could do this with, I think, ASP.NET gRPC. There are some other options in there. Microservices, you could do this with ASP.NET too. All right, so if you want to learn more about this, all you need to do is come to this platform or this website to learn more about it, right? So I'm just going to run you through basic stuff, but quickly, let's see this. It says fast and scalable. ASP.NET performs faster than any popular web framework in the independent tech empower benchmarks. What's your question, Damola?
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Hi, Manuel, can you hear me?
Yes, please, I can hear you.
Yeah, so my question is based on what you talked about Blazor now, that you can just use that is replacing that Microsoft is just building that in a base to replace JavaScript. But my question is, how many Blazor, like, given the fact that we have so many apps built on JavaScript now, how many apps? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so like, how many apps are built on Blazor? That's the normal app, and then with Razor, which is like, my own question is, what are the possibilities of we seeing much of these apps, or are they not in vogue anymore? Because if I say I want to go check most .NET developer roles, most of them are just eye on the fact that you should be able to build web apps, and you should be able to interact with the APIs. But there's less interaction, there's less focus of them asking for experience in building Blazor and Razor pages. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, so the first thing I need to say is Blazor as a project just started. Let's see. When was Blazor made? I think it started not quite long ago. Hopefully I get the answer now. Can you guys hear me? Hello, are you guys?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you see, the initial release of Blazor was in 2018, not quite long ago. All right. So like I was saying, the initial release of Blazor was in 2018, not quite long ago. And Microsoft have been working a lot to make sure that it's popular and it's being used, right? However, a lot of companies already have their code, their front-end code in either React or Angular. So you kind of don't expect them to now just jump in to using Blazor because, oh, Microsoft made it, right? So it's still a work in progress. However, Blazor is an app that a lot of people have been using. My mentor himself uses it to create quick front-end frameworks that, wants to, how do I put it now? Do you know the concept of SP, a single page application?
Yes.
Yeah, so Blazor is also a single page application. So what that means is when you're trying to move from one page to another, you don't have that much of a reload time because some of those pages are just there on one page and they are interacting with one another, and you could just switch between things that you're doing without actually reloading. So this is a Blazor app that I worked on not quite long. Luckily, I was even working on it today. I wanted to run it so that you see how it looks like. So let me just run it here. So, but like I said, Blazor as a concept for companies is not really that popular. Most companies still use Angular and React, and moving from something like that is already out there to just using something that just came up to be a difficult fact. So this is a Blazor app. This is what it looks like, right? This is just front end, no back end. But however, if I switch between pages, as you can see, if you look here, normally an actual app would reload if I switch between pages, but it's not reloading. It's just doing what it needs to do. Yeah, it's loading something here. I don't know if it's going to load it, but let's see. Okay, yeah, exactly. So as you can see, it called an API and made a request and gave a lot of results, like all these JavaScript frameworks. Yeah. So we also added a converter from base, blah, 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 to this is it. So I want to change this to a base 64 code and right. Then I could remove this and then decode it and it comes back up without reloading the screen. Then there's also another API that is going to be called here. Without reloading the screen. As you can see, everything I've done so far, nothing reloaded on the screen, but everything was done with C# and there was no JavaScript inside of it. And that's how Blazor works. So if you're kind of front-end oriented, you might want to try it out. However, like that, whoever asked that question said, you might not see a whole lot of jobs out there asking for Blazor developers, right? But it's also good to have it in your thing. So I've actually not worked with Blazor in any company, right? But on my own, I'm just working on it because, right? What if an opportunity comes and someone says, oh, I need you to build a Blazor app? Well, I'm prepared. That's just how it works. This one is taking a whole lot of time. I guess the API has a lot of data in it. Let me confirm. Flow network is detected, blah, 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 sending this is this. Okay, so there's no error, but it's taking a lot of time. Anyways, so this is just how Blazor looks, right? And you might want to try it out later on. And let me just close this. And as you can see, it's all C#, no JavaScript. Let me go in here. This is WW roots. There's CSS, no JavaScript, Razor, CS Pro, CS. If I go inside here, the components are made in C#. This is a component. The navbar is also a component that we can now add into different parts of your system. Survey prompt is a component, but they are all made in C#. As you can see, C#, HTML, CSS. You don't need a JavaScript file for any of this stuff. So that's how Blazor works. Let's go back to our conversation before we lose track. So I was pointing out this stuff, right? So Tech Empower benchmark, right? I haven't really opened this page to know who they are, but based on their benchmark, .NET performs faster than some other frameworks out there. Java servlets is 2.17 million requests per second. Node.js is 0.66 million requests per second, while .NET is 2. Like more than times3 or around times3 of Java servlet and around times 8, 9 of Node.js, right? So if you, let's go to this website, Web Framework Benchmarks. If you go to this website, you see some of those details and data. And as you can see, it looks like ASP.NET is the second best fastest, yeah. Then this guy, I don't know what this guy is, pico.this, then blah, 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 and a lot of other stuff out there. All right, so you might want to check all of this out. Build secure apps, active community and open source, free hosting on Azure. Well, I haven't actually tried this before, but I wanted to try it one time, although I didn't want to risk it because, man, I'm broke, I don't have money. So I didn't want to risk it. When I was trying to host my blog, I was thinking of hosting on Azure, but I decided let me just host on Netlify, since Netlify, I'm sure Netlify being free. Although I'm not saying that I hosted my C#.NET app on Netlify, because if you want to do that, I think the chances of you being able to do that is very slim, right? There are only a few companies that support hosting applications, and Microsoft Azure is one of them. And I'm going to teach you how to host on Microsoft Azure. All right. Now let's quickly. Let me see, hearing for the first time makes sense now. Okay, great. So now let's quickly just create a simple .NET MVC. We're going to start with MVC before going into APIs, right? So let's build it. .NET, oh shoot, what did I just do? MVC, and then I'm just going to run through some of the files that will be created for us, right? So let's see. I'm going to press CMD here to open the command prompt. So I'm going to try to be slow. Let's see. So the command prompt is going to open, and it's going to be in the directory of Wella L School, which is this directory where we are. And what I need to do is .NET new. I don't know if you guys can see my screen. Oh shoot. Let me see properties. Let me zoom in a bit. Okay, great. So .NET new MVC. So if I want to create an MVC, all I need to do .NET new MVC. Then I'm going to say dash O, which should be the name. So I'm going to say Wella MVC. So dash O means the name I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it. So output, where am I putting it? I'm going to create a folder called Wella MVC and then put my .NET new MVC inside of it. Right? Then I'm going to force it to net 5.0. Right? So because I wanted to create a net 5.0. So another thing I want to do is let me create one for net 6.0 so that we'll see the difference, because ordinarily I would have said we should even start using 6.0 because net 5.0 is no longer in support, and 6.0 is what a lot of companies are using right now. 6.0 is what I'm working with, so let's just create both of them. And then I'm just going to show you the little difference while we're working, and then we'll just ease you in little by little. Okay, so let's see. Wella MVC, start this on Visual Studio Code. Then Wella MVC 6, start this on Visual Studio Code also. So I'm going to open both of them up. Okay, this is for 6, and then so I'm going to split my screen and show you the first difference you're going to notice is blah, 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 all of these other things. And then it might overwhelm you to see all of these files. Previously, you're creating a console app, and the only thing you're seeing is a program file, right? Well, and this is the program file in .NET 5. And open this up also, right? So the difference is for .NET startup.cs, and that class is referenced in our program file here. But for .NET 6, that file is no longer there. No, we're no longer working with that file again, startup.cs. Although sometimes when I'm working, I like to bring it back and then restructure my code to look like .NET 5 because that's what I'm familiar with. Sometimes, but other times, I just allow myself to work with .NET 6 pattern, right? So, but that's one of the main difference between .NET 6 and .NET 5 for ASP.NET, right? So the startup.cs is in 5, but it's no longer in 6. And one of the reasons is the meter, and you don't need all of these plenty things. So if you look at the program.cs here, you see how, okay, this is startup.cs actually. Let me open the program.cs. So now they moved the startup.cs into the program.cs in .NET 6. So I'm going to explain all of this to you shortly, but don't worry. So you see that's how complex it is here. It still has the public class program and then the public static void main. Remember in your console app, this is what you have, and then you do everything you want to do inside of here, right? It's the same thing for our application. So more or less, ASP.NET MVC is like a gigantic console application that has some other packages added to it. But then when you run it, it starts with this main method and then creates host builder, calls this method creates host builder, pass in the arguments, build it, and then run it. Now this creates host builder, what does it do? It collects an host, creates a default builder, creates web host defaults, and then use the web builder there to use the startup and the startup class here. And inside the startup class, we now have a lot of complicated stuff. We have a constructor that collects configuration. Configuration is what do I call this now? Do I call it a method? Okay. Configuration is a class created by Microsoft to help us. So it's a class, right? So this is the interface of the class created by Microsoft to help us get configurations easily during our application, right? Then we have these configure services where we can now configure our services and register them so that we can use them for dependency injection. You don't know what dependency injection is right now. I'm going to explain it later on. Then we also have this configure method where we would configure some more stuff, right? So checking if we're in development mode. If we're in development mode, we're going to use this developer exception page. If not, we're going to send them to an error page that's not going to have a lot of developer message. We're going to look into that later. Then use HTTPS redirection is used to force our app for SSL. Static files is used for static files like HTML and CSS, routing, like it says, right, for routing, right? Authorization is to authorize anybody that is trying to access our app to make sure that they have the authorization to access the app. Use endpoints. So this works with our routing, this use endpoints. So you're mapping the controller route to say that, okay, if you want to access a page, you need the controller and you need the action and probably an ID after it. So all of this is a bit complicated right now. I'm going to explain it little by little. Anyways, on .NET 6, we just have a program file and then we're creating a builder, adding the controllers with views because it's an MVC. Then we have this developer page. Then we have this. So more or less, we have almost the same thing, but we're not having it in the startup anymore. We are now tying it into the program.cs. So that is the difference, basically. But I want to now use 5 to go deeper into this. So I'm going to come back to startup.cs. Let's start from the beginning. This VS Code is for debugging. We've already been saying it before now. So it's already created for us by OmniSharp rather, right? So that we can use it for debug. When your project asks for it, you just click yes and it comes here. Bin files and OBJ files are automatically generated files that have details about our application. Let me put it that way, right? So if I can delete this file, this bin and this OBJ, and then nothing happens. If I build again, it's going to automatically generate these files again with all of the data, right? So some of these files can be used to move the project and then generate it in a different project, right? Let me see. How do I do this? Let me see. Looking for an actual file. Okay, so there should be an executable file. It's probably in the bin file, or it's probably not created now because I've not run or built this application. So that's files or some of these DLLs, but there's also no DLL yet because I've not built and run this. So either that file or some of the DLLs can be used to carry our project from here without copying the code and then using it to generate the projects some other place. I don't know how to do that yet, right? So we're not going to dive deeper into that, kind of a DevOps kind of thing. Now, I don't know if we've heard of MVC before now. Project Architecture MVC, Model View Controller. I've heard of MVC before now.
No, sir. Yes, sir.
I've heard it before, but I haven't used it.
Okay, yeah, so that's fine. So application, how do I put this now? Application structure, MVC, is, so a lot of applications or frameworks have their structure, right? But most applications use the MVC, that's Model View Controller Architectural Pattern, right? Let me open this image. Hopefully gives an idea. So some applications use something called MVM. Some others use, yeah, I think those are the two popular ones. But then says that when you're building an application, right, for ASP.NET, you need these three parts. You need the model, you need the controller, and the view, right? Now, if you're trying to make a request from the view is the part that the user sees. You're trying to make a request from the view. It sends the message to the controller. The controller gets the database and maps the model, gets the model, and then sends it back to the view. And that's how ASP.NET works. Okay. Okay, let me use this application that we're already working with to explain. Right now, so you see there's a controller here, then there's a model here, and then there's a view here. So how does this work? You want to get, it's not in all cases that, okay, you're trying to get a view, it has to go to the model and all of that. But if you're trying to get a view for MVC, it has to hit the controller. Sometimes it doesn't hit the model, but other times it does hit the model, but it definitely has to hit the controller. And then when it hits the controller, you check this home, whatever the controller gives back is what is going to be displayed in the view. So this home controller is what we find in this view as home, right? Now, this index is what is inside this home controller here, index. So anytime you try to hit this index page, it has to come to this home controller, check inside the home index action in the home controller, and do whatever it needs to do there, then returns whatever it needs to return. But in this case, it's not doing anything, it's just returning the page. Privacy, if you come here, it's also there in the controller. So what that means is each time you're trying to hit or get something, it has to check it has to come from the view and goes to the controller. Then most times it goes to the database to get the model and then sends the model back to the view, and the view can now display that model to the user. And that's what MVC is, Model View Controller. The controller is the part that controls what is happening behind the scenes, right? The view is the part that the user sees. The model is the part that kinds of structure the data that is going to be sent back to the user. So the user is not seeing the model the way it's coming from the database, right? The user is seeing the model the way it's structured on the view. So imagine this model now, this error view model. So let's say we're making a request and then there's an error. The user will not say request ID equals this, show request ID equals this. Rather, let me see, error page. The user will see what is shown here, right? So now in this page, I don't know if we're used to HTML and CSS. If you're not, just flow with me here. In this page, what the user will see is, because if there's an issue and then it comes to this error page, it has to go to the controller. However, it does not need to go to the controller in this case, because in the startup, they've already specified that you should use the home error page, right? And then if you come to this home controller, you see that there's an error page down here. And you see the difference between the error page and this other in action. This one just returns view, this other one returns view, but the error returns view and it sends the view error view model, which is the model, right? So now this is a full MVC working. The model, which is inside here, the controller, which is this, and then the view are all working together. Now, once as you can see, the model is here. Once the view gets it, it's going to now present it the way it wants the user to see it. It says at model request ID. So it's going to put it inside a strong listing and put the ID inside here. Then it's also going to put, let me see, model. I think that's the only place I is putting, okay. So if show request ID, it's just going to put the ID actually, just the ID. So, but that is a full MVC working, model, view, and controller. And that's what the controller does. It just controls what's happening behind the scenes. So everything you want to do in your controller, you can do it in here. Then the model is this structure that is going to be sent back to the view. So you don't just send any out structure back to the view. OVJ, we've talked about this. Properties, this is just like a settings, right? So you don't need to touch this. It comes with the application, even in .NET 6. Let me go to .NET 6. Comes with the application. Let me see, properties. Yep. So you don't need to touch it, right? It just comes with the app. It's a settings for sometimes for deployment, sometimes for other things. Like if you're deploying on IIS, just shows the port and all of that. Then if you're just starting with .NET's run, since the environment is developments, gives you this port 5001, 5000 for not SSL and stuff like that. So it's just some settings when you're launching your application. So you don't need to touch it. View, we've talked about it. One thing you need to know is for MVC, there's a shared view that you can use throughout the application. This layout here, then validation scripts, you don't need to disturb yourself about this. Although if you're a front-end person, well, you can know what to do with this and probably think if you want to remove it or not. Then the error page, the view imports. So if you want to import anything like all those your using statements, you can add that here. View starts. Okay, so this is where you're saying that, okay, you want to use this layout throughout the application. That's this layout. Okay, great. That's for the view. WW routes. This is where you want to put some of the static files if you're a front-end person. Your CSS, you put it here. Your JavaScript, you put it here. Libraries, you put them here, like Bootstrap or whatever library you want to use, you put them here. The five icon, put it here if you want to put a 5 icon on your website. Then absentees and development is where you put some of your configurations, and then you can use iConfiguration to get it. You put your configuration in here, and you put another configuration in here. So the difference between absentees.development.json and absentees is this one works only when you're in development mode, and this one overrides it when you deploy to production. So anything that you want to do in development mode, put it in here. Don't put it in here, because if you put what is supposed to work in production in your development mode, then you'll be messing with production data. Although in some cases, you don't even need to bother about it because your DevOps people would have abstracted the configuration and then put them somewhere else. And then you probably want to use something called, forgetting the name now. Oh shoot, forgetting the name. I'll try and remember and send it to you later. Where you put your settings in your system and not on the app. So, but we'll look into that later, hopefully. And I think that's everything. And the CS Proj. The CS Proj is where you put your projects resources. Yeah, installed resources, files, and configuration. You put that in here. Sometimes you don't put them yourself. Once you install or set it, then they are just written in there for you. You'll see how we're going to work on all of that as we go. We have 1 more minute to go. So let's just end the call and then start again. I will just test it out. I'm going to end the call now. start again so everyone can join